Hey guys, coming into another movie for guys, and this movie we're reviewing, I was a bit skeptical going in this movie, I have to say. I mean, I remember I watched trailers for this movie, and I really didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew I had to check it out because it's been getting a lot of Oscar acclaim. Well, it's already getting award acclaim, and I think it's definitely going to be up there in the Oscars, and that movie is Carol. Carol's a movie that when I first saw the trailers, really wasn't interested in. It looked very boring and uninteresting, and it just didn't seem like that interesting of a movie. But again, those trailers showed basically no dialogue. Those trailers just didn't make things interesting, and like I said in my review, it could end up being a very good movie. It's just the trailers were making it seem very boring. So I really didn't know what Carol was going to be going into it. I heard really good things about it, but I really know how I was going to feel about this movie. And after watching Carol, I gotta say that very quickly, all of my worries were completely completely fled away once I watched Carol, which is without a doubt one of the best films of the entire year. I absolutely love Carol. I think it's a great movie and definitely deserves a lot of the Oscar hype that it's been getting. Now let's get to the basic plot of Carol, because the plot of this movie I really love, and something I really love in general is that the movie makes it seem like Carol's the main character. While she is, this really is centered on Therese. She is our main character here, played by Rooney Mara. You know, she has a pretty good life. She's working in this department store, and she really wants to be a photographer. She's not really doing what she wants to do. She's in this department store and everything. She has this boyfriend that is just, it's not really going well exactly, or it's just there's something not going well there. She's not really connecting with him very well. And one day she meets this girl, Carol, who is much older than she is. Probably I'd say like in her mid 40s, early 50s. That's probably what I'd say. And she basically attracts Carol right away because she's the first person that that basically treats Carol in a very kind way, which she doesn't get a lot. And very slowly these two start to form a connection, and Carol's a lot more going on in her life as well. And that's really all I'm going to say about the movie, because I don't want to spoil the rest of the movie for you guys, because this really is a very solid film. I really loved a lot of things about Carol. It's not a masterpiece, but is very close to being one. I will definitely say that. Now, the acting here, without a doubt, is some of the best I've seen all year, mainly because our two characters are just so compelling. They could have easily done very just like cardboard cutout characters. You guys know, a love story can be either really good or really bad. Nowadays, love stories aren't really that well portrayed. Carol is one of the best love stories I've seen in a very long time. I think the way they told this story was really, really great, because the introductions to their characters are just so great, and both Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara give amazing performances as these two characters. Both of these characters are basically just trying to find themselves. They know who they are, but they don't really want to show who they really are because they're worried that the people in their life are not going to accept them that way. And they're kind of afraid to show who they really are, which I think is definitely very interesting, and I really love seeing that. Therese, in the sense that she hasn't really connected with anyone before. I mean, she is a very awkward person. She doesn't connect with a lot of people. She's not really happy. She kind of fakes her happiness, and when she meets Carol, everything changes. But Carol, I thought, was just as interesting of a character, because Carol has definitely been through a lot more than Therese. By the way, that is her name. It's not Therese, it's Therese, which I thought was very interesting the way they did that. Something that stood about her name in general. But Carol is a character that she's just been through a lot in general. I mean, her and her husband, they are divorced. They're getting a divorce. We know they're getting a divorce. Her husband suspects that she's been cheating on him with this girl, Abby, that we basically are thinking that has slept with before, and she doesn't really know who she is. Well, she kind of does. She knows that she's a lesbian, and so does Therese, but they don't really want to show who they are, because they're just kind of afraid to do that, and I think they really portrayed that very, very well. In many ways, that is how gays and lesbians act. Now, I'm not saying that I would know personally, because I am a straight man talking right now, but from what I've seen and what I've heard, most people that are gay or lesbian are very scared to come out, and especially in the 1960s when this movie takes place, when that was not a common thing and that was not right back then. So I really thought they portrayed that aspect very well, and the chemistry these two have is just so natural. The second these two meet, I'm like, this is some of the best chemistry I've seen all year. It might honestly be the best. I think the chemistry that these two have is just fantastic. It really is great. They are spot on, and you really do see them as lovers, even in scenes where they're not really acting like a couple, because they have to hide the fact that they're a couple for a while, and I definitely love that about their characters, and they definitely did a very good job. I also like that this movie wasn't based on anything. It's not based on a story. It's not based on a book. Well, actually, it is based on a book, but it's not based on a true story. It's a story that just needs to be told, and I think it's a very interesting story, and I really love that. Sarah Paulson, I really loved her character in this movie, Abby, because she also is feeling a lot of neglect in this movie, from Carol, because, Carol had this affair with her, we eventually find out, and it's not a spoiler, we know fairly early into the film that that's probably what's going on, but there's this really great scene with her, and Therese, which I don't want to spoil, but it's a very powerful scene. She definitely did a very good job, and I thought overall Sarah Paulson was great. Who I was very surprised by was Kyle Chandler. Holy shit, I loved his character. I mean, you hate his character. Harj Arid is one of the best villains of the year, without a doubt. He did a great job as this villain. But you really do understand his points. I mean, he just wants his wife to love him, basically. And he wants nothing more than to just have Carol, and wants to control every aspect of her life. And despite her having an affair, you don't blame her. You don't blame her for having an affair, because her husband's such a dick and won't just let her make her own choices and won't just let her be her. He makes it seem like this is a bad thing for her, and I really loved his character. He's a very good antagonistic figure, and they did a good job with making him an antagonist, but not, a big antagonist. He's an antagonist in the sense that he's really the thing that's made Carol so scared to come out and show who she is, and I really think they did that very, very well. The entire cast was great in this movie, and I really thought they all did a fantastic job. The directing here by Todd Haynes, I really appreciate. I really thought was very well done. I loved his directing to this movie. Just the style he had was so great. Very early on in the film, like the first 6 minutes, it's a very psychological story. We're seeing this, these two people sit, and they're acting like complete strangers, and they did that very, very well with this movie, and the movie really showed how one connection can just change everything, and I really love that. His directing was very spot on, and really, I think, hit all the major points he wanted to, and it never felt like he was being preachy with this subject. It didn't feel like he was, just trying to say, oh, gays and lesbians are right, straight people are wrong. That's not the message I got with this movie. What I got is, we all need to just be ourselves, and we shouldn't be afraid to show ourselves. Although in this society, in 1952, not the 1960s, 1952, that was not really something that was good, and I think his directing was very good. It was dark, but it wasn't dark in the sense of just being dark. It just needs to be a dark story, and I think his, tone was very spot on. My only issue with this film is the screenplay, mainly because the first hour of this film is one of the best hours I've watched of any film this year. I mean, they just do such a great job at sucking you in right away to the lives of these two characters, and I was so interested in what's going on. Where the film slows down a bit is when Carol and Therese actually decide to start a relationship and start something up, and Carol gets away from Harj. That's when the film slowed down a bit for me. And it wasn't bad. It still was very good. There were just some scenes I felt that were just a bit slow. And when they do eventually get together, it did seem a bit abrupt. I will definitely say that. When I did feel it was a bit abrupt when they did get together. There's a sex scene that happens, I think, not too late in the film, but definitely I think didn't need to, definitely could have been a different spot in the film. It's a very good scene, I will say that, and I really love the way that scene was done. The sex scene in this film isn't just a sex scene, it's kind of trying to show them, stripping away all of their, all the disguises that they've had. They disguise themselves as one way, and this is them ripping it away and just trying to be who they really are, not being afraid to accept it. And that's really the reason why these two work out so well. This movie really is about three things. It's about loneliness, It's about isolation from someone, just not having a connection. It's about making connections in general, about how you shouldn't be afraid to make a connection. You shouldn't be afraid to talk to someone like Therese is, obviously, because she feels she's different and she's just too different for that time period, doesn't know people are going to react to that sort of thing. It's a great story of finding yourself, because Carol is a woman that really is finding herself. I mean, she knows who she is, but she's not exactly sure. And the biggest one is acceptance. This movie really is about acceptance. You need to accept who you are and not be afraid to show that. And the message that this movie has with that, I feel, is very important, especially in today's society. It's a message that, we live in a very PC world, that it was really great to see a time period where this really wasn't okay. And no one was really like this. You really do feel Carol and Therese are very different in this world, just because no one's like that. 1952, everything was all, censored, and we had black and white television, and there were even certain things you couldn't say or do on TV. At a time, that was how it was, and it's very interesting to look back at that time, and I think the movie really portrayed that time period maybe better than any film I've seen this year. I think probably one of the best things this film got done perfectly was the time period. Definitely really great. The conversations in this movie really do feel real. I mean, they really felt like very powerful conversations, and at times I felt like this actually happened. And this has to be based off of something. Again, I know it's based off a book, but I have to think that book is based off of something. I mean, this just seems like a couple that you'd meet in that time period, and it really makes you take a look at things. I mean, there are a lot of legends about celebrities who have hid themselves and not wanting to say who they really are, mainly just because they were afraid or wasn't right for the time. You guys can look it up, but there are many, classic figures in like 1950 or 1940s, even the early 1900s, that were supposedly gay and didn't want to admit it and were closeted because of that. And the ending of this film really sums it up very, very well. It's a very, very satisfying ending, and I definitely really love the way the movie was done. And I definitely thought it was a very powerful ending, I have to say. Definitely really love that about the movie. Just the screenplay overall, one of the best of the year. They set up these characters very, very well. The second half, like I said, just a bit slow at points, but I did feel that they really handled everything pretty much perfectly in terms of the screenplay. All their character motivations were great, and I really didn't know what was going to happen in the last half of this film, and I really got into it, I have to say. I mean, the first half, I was really into it. Second half, it started to just meander a bit for me, but then an event happens in the third half, and I'm like, okay, this is extremely engaging, and I'm loving it, and honestly, really intense stuff. Really love the way this movie ended. I really did not know what was going to happen. Perfect ending, in my opinion. Honestly, probably one of the best endings I've seen all year. Really loved it. Especially because it just goes so well with the first scene of the film, and the way they edited this film. One of the best things about this film by far is the editing that they had with this movie. It's very ambiguous as to what's going on in the first scene of this movie, and I definitely really love that, because they're basically telling the story of why these two are acting the way they are, and I definitely really love the way that that was done. And then when you realize why that scene is the way it is, it's just that more powerful, and I really love the way that that was handled. The score is simply one of the best of the year. It's a beautiful score, it's a heartbreaking score. It really just feels like the perfect score of this movie, and it went so well with all the scenes it was in. I also loved the 50s music in this film. That's something I mean, I just love 50s music in general, so it was great to hear in this movie, but I just felt it went very well this time period, and putting in the 50s was a very wise decision, definitely, and I'm very happy they decided to do that. Cinematography looks great with this film. Some of the cinematography is absolutely gorgeous in this film. They really did a great job. There's some very wide shots, and they all look fantastic. The costume design was great. The set design, I really loved everything about the costumes and the set and whatnot there. They really did a very good job with that, and I definitely really appreciate that. I thought that was definitely one of the best aspects about the film, without a doubt, and that's one of the things I love the most. Um, and in terms of, Oscars, I am very happy this movie is getting a lot of critical acclaim, because it definitely deserves the Golden Globes that it's getting. Without a doubt, Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara both need to be nominated. They both gave amazing performances, and they're both just very good characters. Now, I will say that don't go into this movie thinking it's just a love story. In fact, I don't think this movie really is a love story. It handles that aspect very well, but it's really just about accepting yourself and not being afraid to be different from society, which is something that I think we are as humans are just very afraid of. And not just in the sense of being gay or lesbian, just being different. I mean, think about it. Someone's a certain way, you most times blend in with them. You want to. You want to be that population. You want to do that. You want to blend in with them because, majority rules. That's how it always is. But you also want to be your own person, and that's something that Carol and Therese both learn in this movie in a very ambiguous way, and I really love that. There are a lot of ambiguous themes in this film that are handled very, very well, and I really love the way that they were done. Also, nothing's overdone in this movie. You will notice these characters don't have a freak out moment, and you guys are probably wondering, why exactly do you want them to win best, why exactly should they be nominated? Because they just portray these characters perfectly. They didn't need a freak out moment, okay? This was very realistic. That's one of the best things about Carol is that's one of the most realistically portrayed movies of the entire year, and that's one of the reasons I loved it as much as I did. And overall, guys, Carol is just a great movie. I can't wait to watch it again. Definitely one of my favorite movies of the year, without a doubt. I think that it was definitely a very well-handled film. If you haven't checked it out yet, definitely check it out. It's on Solar Movie, so that's, of course, how I was able to see. I'm so happy that all these films are getting leaked online, because I've wanted to see these films, and there's no Birdman or Whiplash this year, guys. That's how awesome this is. There's not going to be a Birdman or Whiplash this year where I have to wait till January to watch it. That's not going to happen this year, because literally every film I want to watch the rest of the year is on Solar Movie minus one movie, and I love that. I think it's fantastic that the way they handled that. But overall, guys, Carol is simply one of the best love stories I've seen in a very long time. It is the perfect portrayal of acceptance. It is everything that I really wanted to be, despite some slow scenes. I really did love it, I have to say. That was definitely something I really loved. Also, I forgot to say, with the character of Harsh, he really goes far in this movie in terms of trying to show that Carol's doing something wrong. I mean, he goes as far as hire a private investigator to investigate them. That's how far he goes. That's how wrong he feels Carol is. But, as bad as that is, that's just how people were back then. And that's something I loved about Harsh, the character. Harsh is not a bad guy because that's just how people were, and that just is how, the popular common man was back then. It just felt bad to not be that way, and that's something that was very good with this movie, is that these two don't want to co-bound with humanity and have to learn how to not do that. Basically, they have to learn to not co-bound with humanity. And definitely, guys, I am without a doubt going to give Carol a 4.6 out of 5 or an A. I absolutely loved this film. I think it's one of the best films of the year, without a doubt. Without a doubt, it will be on my top 10. Okay, definitely this movie will be on my top 10. It's a movie that I can't recommend enough. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. You will definitely not regret it. Like I said, it is a bit slow at some points, and I do feel some people might find this movie slower than others, but if you really, I will say this, if you're not riveted by this film in, like, the first, 6 minutes, and you're not intrigued at least, you're not going to like this movie, okay? If the first scene really sets the tone for, this is how the movie's going to be, and if you don't like the way it's going to be, then you're not going to like it. If you're not, somehow riveted or interested by that first scene, you're not going to be interested in this film, and I hope you are, because it really is a great film, and I can't wait to, and I really hope you guys definitely check it out, because it really is a fantastic film. And as always, my review for Carol, hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you guys saw this movie, you have seen it. Definitely one of the best films of the year, without a doubt. And we'll see you guys in the next video, which will be for another movie review, and I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.